Must read more patch notes and data mining. Hey there, this is your pal Pally, and welcome back to Overrated. This is episode number 19, getting close to 20. Woo! And today we've got lots and lots of Warlords of Draenor alpha information. Tons of stuff from the patch notes, from data mining, and Twitter, and all that other fun jazz. We're going to talk some more general changes, but then I'm going to follow up from my last episode with some of the more hunter topics that have been talked about, and some of the tweets that are more hunter specific, because that's what I follow a lot of. I was thinking of also trying to make a similar one, for the last episode about paladins, but there actually isn't a lot of information about what paladin mechanic changes there are. The big one that's identified has been Inquisition has now gone from Retribution Paladin, so something they don't have to manage anymore. But there's not too much more information beyond that. Obviously, Holy Paladins have been affected by all of the other changes with the spells and the spirit and all that other jazz from the general approaches that they talked about in healing from before. So nothing much to talk about there. So I may not do a paladin specific overrated, in the future or something. But anywho, lots of stuff to dive into. Let's get to it. So, heading over to the patch notes, we've got lots and lots of fun info. A lot of this is stuff that we've actually seen before, so we know about sort of the garrisons. There's some more building information about the garrisons that's been data mined, but there really isn't a lot of now here's some more gameplay information about it. So that's fine. We talked the level 100 talents and perks and all that stuff last time. The stat squish is still there. They still have the same explanation and all that other jazz. Primary stats and attack power. I'm just going through each section by section here. All this is the same. Player health the same. The healing spell discussion is all the same as well. Racials, we'll touch on this topic real quick. This, they actually sort of nailed down, or it's not set in stone, but they sort of nailed down what the final bonuses will be for races. They kind of, remember again, they had to take out any of those racials that had to do with expertise or hit. So they had to sort of go in there anyway. They just decided to redo them all. One notable exception is there is no change to pandas. So don't have to change my hunter at all. Actually, we don't know if that's final. I've actually tried to ask a couple times on Twitter, but haven't received an answer from devs on that. But you can check out the patch notes for what exactly your race is getting or losing or whatnot. Much of it is what they identified from before, so there you go. So ability printing is what we talked about on last time's Overrated, number 18, where spells were removed and they were changing the dynamics of classes. So again, you can dig into your specific class and see what's changed. Crowd control we talked about a bit as well. That's where they're taking out a lot of crowd control. Section I want to stop on here, though, is buffs and debuffs. So they got some more information about what they're doing here with buffs and debuffs. One of the, they're sort of taking stuff away that didn't make sense or combining stuff. So, for example, weakened armor, weakened blows, those are, those aren't there anymore for the most part. One of the cast speed slowing is not there anymore as well. One of the more interesting changes that I like is that spell haste and all that other jazz is sort of combined into haste. So before you had melee, ranged, and spell haste, and those were provided by different hunter pets and different classes. So one of those being spell haste was the one that seemed to not be there usually, depending if you were running a 10-man heroic or something. So they basically took all of those people who provided melee, ranged, or spell haste, and they all just provide haste, and it buffs those three things regardless. So now you have boomkins, the spore bat for hunters, shadow priests, and say death knights, DPS death knights, enhancement shamans, rogues, all providing haste to the group. not specific range versus melee versus spell or whatever all that does. So, cool. Good stuff. Now you don't have to worry as much about that. So, good combinations there. So, next up, we want to talk about, well, instant cast heals goes back to some of the other stuff about spelling healing, but let's talk tanks. Vengeance is gone. What we have now is resolve. So we're no longer vengeful, we're resolved to do some stuff? I don't know. But this is what change they made. So what they said, what Blizzard said for this change was vengeance was a good defensive thing. They liked how that worked out, that if you're getting beat on like as a prot paladin or something, and you got a lot of vengeance, then all of a sudden your, word of glory that you've been saving up like heals you from 20% to full or something. Yeah, so you sort of were playing your paladin right if you were getting some damage, and you turn that damage into, more survivability. So that worked out. What they didn't like was how tanks tried to take damage on purpose in order for vengeance to stack, and then their DPS was better than all the DPS in the raid on certain encounters. So, and if you didn't have an encounter that was hard hitting in any way, then tanks were like way down on the DPS list, like way maybe below like a, disc priest doing their fun stuff. So what they wanted to do was sort of make tanks be the lowest of DPS, higher than healers. It'd be a significant chunk of DPS, but they wanted the whole intake of damage to translate into better survivability and better defensive value. So resolve sort of increases your healing and absorption effects, and it's going to be different per class, and we don't have a lot of information specifically about what resolve will do, but we do know that to compensate for sort of vengeance going away, a lot of sort of baseline abilities for tanks are going to be buffed. And the first thing they started with is mastery for pretty much every tanking class increases your damage up. And so that's, again, don't pay attention to the exact number. For most of them, for all of them, it's increased attack power by 12%. Don't pay attention to the 12% number. They'll tune that and figure out exactly where they want that to land. But in the end, their goal is that you want to use resolve and use your incoming damage to make you a better, more survivable tank, but your DPS should still be significant if you're pressing buttons and smashing the boss in the face. So there's probably going to be a lot of tuning talk about this in the future, and there's more information to come with this. This is sort of a first salvo of resolve here. So we'll see how this one turns out, but a pretty major change to tanking that they've laid down here. So what's up next? Professions. So professions is one we'll probably talk a little bit more in depth about, because in the past, professions have been sort of raid combat bonuses, or hey, you're dumb, you have herbalism and that provides no benefit for you. Why are you herbalism and mining when you're a hunter? Haha. So Blizzard has basically said no more combat bonuses or stat bonuses, whatever, for professions. Gone. Forget it. Boom. It's gone. It's out of there. What they want professions to be instead is, I don't know yet. But they at least don't want professions to have that whole min-max, if like this expansion, engineering was one of the top professions. The previous expansion, it was, I think, blacksmithing and jewel crafting. So they don't want people picking their professions just because that's going to provide them with the best DPS or the best healing or the best tanking, whatever. So they removed all that crap off of, like, say, so for example, leatherworking wouldn't have the wrist enchant anymore. Engineering won't have the synapse springs that provide you that bonus to your stats and stuff. So all that's gone. Yeah. Interesting. I think it's a good move on their part in terms of making it so that your professions don't feel like, well, you're just bad if you have that profession. What are you doing, noob? So I kind of like that. And then combine all of this with what garrisons are going to provide, which we'll see some of that data mine stuff in a moment. But I hope this doesn't kill the enthusiasm for professions, I guess. Certainly they've been sort of money makers in the past, or at least some of them have. And I would hope that that's sort of where it lands. It may not. I don't know. It may be like, who cares if you have a profession? It's not providing any benefit to you in the raid. Whatever. When you look at a raid applicant, one of the things you check is, well, they have a profession up to the point where they're getting the combat bonus. Now that's just not going to be a thing. Now you're just going to be like, whatever. He has inscription. Okay, he can provide some glyphs. Whatever. So, I don't know. Really kind of worried about where this is going to land professions, combined with the garrison information, where professions, you can probably get some of the profession help on your garrison. I don't know. I like again, like I said, I like that the min-max thing is out. It's just like, are professions going to matter? That's my concern. One other note before we move on from professions is a sort of buff to healing potions and a nerf to warlock hellstones. So hellstones will no longer share a cooldown with healing potions will no longer share a cooldown with other potions. But they will share a cooldown with the warlock hellstones. So, not sure how this will work out in that hellstone sort of has the 3 charges. Does this mean that a hellstone can only be used once in the raid? I haven't seen an answer, or once in the encounter. I haven't seen an answer to that yet, or maybe I haven't dug deep enough. But what is interesting about it, at least, it does say the cooldown will not reset until a player leaves combat. At least that's for the healing potion. I don't know if that's the same for the healthstone. We'll see. But what they wanted to accomplish here was making healing potions relevant. And essentially, they are completely irrelevant right now, unless maybe you're a tank. I could see a tank using a healing potion. But healers are going to use mana potions. If we're talking like, hardcore or whatever, we're, barely getting by the skin of our teeth. Healers are going to use mana potions. DPS are going to want to use DPS potions, so they're not going to touch a healing potion with, a 20-foot pole. And tanks may use a healing potion, but at least in the current iteration, they've got vengeance stacking, so maybe they want to use a DPS potion too, because they want to crank out some DPS or crank out better healing, whatever. So healing potions are fairly irrelevant. I know someone's going to post back and be like, well, no, I use them all the time. But anywho, in general, they feel that way. And so this is an interesting change, and what I like about the change is that it helps out those groups that don't have a warlock in their raid. So talking like maybe a 10 or 12 man group that's going to be doing normal and heroic modes in Draenor, this may help them out because, hey, we don't have a warlock tonight. Crap, we don't have hellstones. Hellstones were pretty useful. I find myself using them quite a bit. Like, I just did that Siegecrafter heroic belt, deep dive and stuff, and I'd be using my healthstone all the way through the fight, and I would probably use all 3 charges of it, depending on, how things were going. So, healthstones are fairly nice to have, and when you don't have them from a warlock, it's not great for your healers, or at least it's, it's a little bonus. It's not huge, it's not game breaking, but it's nice. This at least gives you an option if you don't have a warlock. So, I like that, but I need to find out some more specifically if, say, healthstones, you can only use them once in an encounter. That would be a significant nerf to healthstones. So, I don't know. A little iffy there. So, that's professions. Good stuff there. Next up, I want to sort of point out what people have been doing with the patch. as of right now, this is a friend and family only alpha, so people can, those people who were allowed to download it and get in there and log in and do some stuff for them. But the actual installer is available. Not sure. I'm not going to share it in case there's some sort of weirdness or whatever. But essentially, people have gotten a hold of the actual installer and been able to download it and download the beta itself. And I'm talking, sites like Wowhead and MMO Champion and those types of sites. So with that, they're not allowed. People getting it are not allowed to actually log in. In fact, it was pretty funny. I think on the front of MMO Champion, they were like, "Hey, we've got the beta," except it was actually a login screen and him saying, "Yep, you can't log in even if you get this stuff." And then it was just like a big troll. Had like 3,000 people watching the login screen. Yay. But they were able to sort of get the patch and start like picking apart the files and looking at stuff in there to go, oh, this has changed, here's a list of strings about garrisons, here's a list of achievements and whatnot. So they've been data mining the crap out of the patch, and there's a lot of interesting information coming out of that. So, been able to find out some more about glyphs, some more about, spells and whatnot. And, what I wanted to go towards and show you is there was actually able to data mine a whole lot of more stuff about garrison buildings. So you can see, as they said, there were 3 levels of buildings, V1, 2, 3, all level 1, 2, 3, all that kind of jazz. And sure enough, they did sort of say that you would have buildings related to professions. So there they are, alchemy, blacksmith, enchanting, engineering, etc., etc. It's all there. What is interesting is that there are quite a few buildings listed here, and that probably means you're not going to have enough plots to have, I don't remember the exact plot numbers again, for your garrisons to put these buildings down on, but this means you're probably going to have to make some choices per character about what's my garrison going to have. Do I want to have an alchemy thing? Do I care about that? Or do I want to have a mine so I can get some stuff, gathered for me? So, more to come, but I just thought I'd show you sort of what data mining people do, because there's a lot of work that goes into providing a list like this, and there's a lot of stuff that you can read on, say, like I said, MMO Champion and Wowhead and all that other jazz. So, that's all fun, happy stuff, and really neat stuff that's coming out of data mining. And the devs have been very good about actually answering questions on Twitter and other interviews and such, so there's even more information coming out over the next few days. Some of this will probably be outdated by the time I get this up. I'm going to try to get this one up pretty quickly, but anywho, some of this might be wrong by the time I get it out. That's the nature of alphas and betas and trying to, provide the news like this quickly. So anywho, that's it for sort of the general information that I wanted to provide. What I want to provide more so is a update on hunter changes, because we've gotten, like I said, more answers from more interviews and tweets. So what are hunters talking about? Well, going back to one of their other changes that they've been talking about, they sort of wanted to change raid cooldowns. For the whole raid specifically, they wanted to take raid-wide cooldowns away from tanks. They wanted to provide sort of survivability cooldowns to healers, make sure they're the ones doing that. And for DPS, they wanted to have them provide a little bit of utility, a little bit of raid utility or cooldown or something. So an example of that would be mages are getting Amplify Magic back, but it's different. It essentially increases the amount of healing the raid receives by 20%. So it's kind of a healing type cooldown, but not quite. And it's kind of small and minor in its utility, but there you go. So this prompted the question from hunters, well, what do we get? Because hunters have never had a raid cooldown for the most part, besides providing like lust and stuff as Beastmaster. But what they said was, hey hunters, here's what you get. Your misdirect lasts for an hour. huh? No, it's actually pretty interesting, and so let's dive into it. So, essentially what I envision this as working out is that you click misdirect, you click the tank and go, yay, cast it on the tank. And then that lasts for an hour. So, I wonder if it persists through death. That'd be interesting to find out. But anywho, your misdirection throughout an encounter is going to be up. What does that mean? This is the trigger happy. Trigger happy. It's trigger happy. It's the trigger happy talent. It's the trigger happy raid cooldown. We get to blast. We get to be the first ones to shoot at anything because it doesn't matter. It'll go to the tank. Come on. You have to be excited about that, at least a little bit. I know it's not a raid-wide cooldown that's going to save everyone, but you have to be excited for being able to shoot the crap out of stuff as the first person. Seriously, let's go. Let's do this. If I'm pulling the boss, it doesn't matter because it's going to be misdirected to you anyway. Okay, don't do that. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy or gal. But, anywho, this does make it nicer for hunters whenever new ads are coming out or the second boss just came out or whatever. Anytime you shoot it, it's going to a tank. Or at least your aggro means nothing anymore because it's going that way. So, good stuff. And it actually also probably helps out with soloing stuff. You can cast Misdirect on your pet. Anything that comes out, anything that you shoot, is going to your pet. Cool. Nice. So that is what the raid cooldown that hunters received. I'm sure there will be some more discussion about that because that just basically came out a few hours ago that before I recorded this, that info came out. So there we go. Next up, speaking of raid-wide cooldowns and Heroism and Lust, like I did just a few minutes ago, all hunter specs are going to have that available. So there are going to be pets that are non-exotic. They're labeled as non-exotic, which for Beast Mastery hunters, you get the exotic ones. The other specs don't. Non-exotic pets that have Heroism and Lust, as well as every other debuff or buff that could possibly be in the game. So, for example, there will be a battle res pet that can be used by a survival hunter. So, basically, whatever Beast Mastery hunters had before, survival and marksmanship have now. I'm sure Beast Mastery is probably upset about this change because it sort of lessens the draw to be a Beast Mastery hunter, or at least lessens the, we need Lust because the mage is out. Okay, I have to go Beast Mastery, and I'm the one pressing the button. No one else is. So, sort of lessens Beast Mastery, but obviously buffs survival and marksmanship because now they can provide whatever the raid needs. So, that's nice. That's nice to have, I guess. What's really nice to have is this next change that has sort of been dug out. Their camouflage is now a self-heal for all specs. So basically, camouflage is this thing where you go all stealthy and cool and stuff, and you take some range. You can't be targeted by ranged spells, and it works for some mechanics and other encounters. But now, whenever you are in camouflage, you get 5% of your health back every second. In combat, that lasts for 6 seconds, so you would get 30% of your health back over 6 seconds if you stayed in camouflage. The only problem with camouflage is that it's a cooldown where if you use it, you're sort of out of combat in a sense, and if you do anything, if your pet does anything, you pop out of it and it's gone. But here's a perk for survival hunters that I saw, and then I was like, oh yeah, and reading forums, they were like, oh yeah, this is kind of nice for survival hunters. For survival hunters, camouflage will not break even if you do damage or if your pet does damage or if you take damage. Doesn't matter, camo will not break. So you can be just going pew 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 and getting that self-heal over 6 seconds every, I don't know, minute, or I guess it's 45 seconds currently. Maybe they'll change it. But what this means is survival hunters are more survivable. Oh my god, imagine that. So, an interesting perk for survival, and an interesting mechanic for the other two specs, Beast Mastery and Marksmanship. For those two specs, they're going to sort of have to stay in camo and not do anything if they really want to get the heal, and then they, sort of come back into it. For survival, it's going to be probably a button used on cooldown, depending on raid-wide damage and whatnot. So, interesting. Very interesting. We now have a self-heal. So that was sort of maybe a bit of that raid utility type stuff that they're talking about each class should have. Again, it's fairly minor, 30% over 6 seconds. That's not game-breaking, lay on hands type heal or something like that. But, interesting. Nice to have. There was also some stuff that people data mined with respect to glyphs. So, they didn't make mention of Snake Trap in the sort of ability pruning site, or the ability pruning patch note, but apparently Snake Trap is gone off of sort of the base spells that you have, but you can use a glyph to get it back. I don't know. That one was a little weird. The other more interesting glyph was Deep Frost. So if you trap something with a freezing trap, it will stay frozen regardless of damage done to it, and it's invulnerable and stuff. So it's basically like Cyclone from Druids. That'd be great for PvP, depending on your strategy, your makeup, and whatnot. What it might not be good for is PvE, because if your trap is supposed to last like a minute, like it does now, how do you actually break it in case you want to? You CC that ad over there, like I'm working on Heroic Paragons of the Claxi right now with my guild, and sometimes we want to crowd control the parasites that come out in the sort of initial stuff. Sometimes that parasite might end up sitting on some amber or something, and someone needs to eat that parasite. Again, if you don't know the fight, maybe this isn't making sense, but sometimes you want to crowd control stuff, and then sometimes you want to break it. Well, how am I supposed to break that thing out if it doesn't break on damage? So, I don't know. We'll see what use that glyph does. But yeah, lots of interesting stuff that's been data mined, lots of stuff on the patch notes itself, lots of stuff with Twitters, and there's more interviews and things to come, and there'll be a lot more information throughout the week. I'm excited. Lots of fun stuff out there. So that about does it for the main portion of what I wanted to talk about today. Going to give an update on my Insane in the Membrane achievement and then close this up. So, Insane in the Membrane, I am done with all of the Goblin factions, Steamweedle Cartel. Yay, I've killed lots of pirates. They're all dead. You're safe now, pirates. I'm not coming for you anymore. So, I've got those 4 factions done. Darkmoon actually starts this week, so I'm going to start hopping on that. And for Ravenholt, I am about halfway through Revered now. I calculated that I need to get 618 more junk boxes. Yes, 618 more. Out of the, I think it was something like 1,270-ish that you have to have overall to go from Honored all the way up to Exalted. So I'm halfway through. Yay, the good stuff. Pickpocketing with the Rogue, and I just go through that kind of stuff, and the killing of the pirates. I will watch some anime over on this monitor, and then I'm turning like hey, cool anime stuff. Oh, I just fell off a cliff. No, pickpocket this, do this, and so I've watched a crap ton of anime throughout all of this. Actually watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood again because I just like that series. Whatever, we can talk anime at some point if we want to, but. We watched over here and do my grindy stuff on the other monitor. It's sort of made it pretty interesting because I'm just rolling through episodes and the time just passes, and then hey, all of a sudden I'm exalted with Gadgetsan or something, and they're like, oh, cool, well, let me move over to here and start grinding this, and oh, maybe let's go do some junk boxes or whatever. So cool, getting there. Unfortunately, probably maybe I'll finish off Ravenhold this week. Not sure. It's like I seem to get like between 80 and 100 per sort of session that I can stand. 80 to 100 junk boxes. So that's maybe 6 more days of grinding for me at least. So I might not be done with it next week. And I'll give an update next week about where I got with Darkmoon within a week. Because that's, that'll be happening this week. But that's it. That's my little update for my Insane in the Membrane achievement. I've actually seen quite a few people out there killing pirates. I don't know if, I've drummed up interest in this myself. I'm not that famous. I'm really not that famous that someone would watch this and then go, oh, I need to do that. But I've seen quite a few people grinding the pirates there, and I've grouped up quite a few times, and that actually helps a ton. If you can get a hold of a warlock, oh my god, that is freaking lovely. Rain of fire everywhere. Anything spawns, it's dead. I mean, crap. Go get a warlock. Have them help you with this stuff because it's just ridiculous. At least, especially for the pirates that are by Gadget Sand. I forget what the cove is. It's something cove. Anywho, that little area that everyone grinds there, it's just like put Rain of Fire over here, put Rain of Fire in the middle, and then just Hunter, you go cover the other stuff. Where I'm like shooting 1 or 2 mobs every few seconds. It's just like, there's Rain of Fire everywhere. Oh my god. I don't know. Find a warlock. They're good. They're nice. Give them cookies, except they give you cookies. Anyway, getting goofy, so it probably means it's time to wrap this up. Thanks, guys, for watching. Please subscribe. Does help me out. It helps me gain. I've gained a lot of subscribers over the past few, months and years and whatnot. Happy to have that. Happy to have people actually following this series. I mean, I put this up and get quite a few views even before it gets up on Tank Spot, so that, I appreciate that because that means there are people paying attention to what I'm doing, and I really, it's great. I'm really happy about that and really happy to see that. So thanks everyone for watching, and time to sign off. This is your pal Pally for Overrated. Have a good one, guys.